Welcome to Update Brazil. Our special guest today is Cliff Kincaid, author of The Sword of the Revolution, the Communist Apocalypse. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Cliff, for staying here for us today. And it's an honor, Cliff, to be here with you. Olavo de Carvalho is talking a lot of things about you, and thank you very much.
It's great to be with you, Alan and Jeff.
Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Alan. You know, this book, The Sword of the Revolution, I'm going to put it right up here. The Sword of the Revolution and the Communist Apocalypse is extremely interesting, especially to me, and because it's about really communist dialectics and how communist strategy works. And in a time when we don't really, most people don't even know that communists are there, it helps to explain and sort of set the stage. This book explains how the thinking is where we come to this position today where all these moderates, all these supposed political moderates actually of communist background are really still communists. Cliff, could you talk about this for a minute just to sort of introduce the idea?
Well, what's important from our perspective is to understand what's out there in the political arena, who's who. And one of the things I do in that book, we have an appendix that lists self-identified communist or so-called workers' parties around the world. There's literally dozens of them. I also have a list of so-called Marxist, socialist, and communist parties here in the United States. It's not a complete list. I think I've got maybe 10 or 12 on that list. And these political movements or parties spring up all the time, and they're dangerous in their own right, but they also are important because they're active in the major political parties in our countries. Here in the United States, of course, mostly through the Democratic Party, but they're also active in the communities. I run into them in the Washington, D.C. area, in neighborhoods. They're active on campuses. And let me give you an example, because I'm on a lot of mailing lists. This is one of my jobs. You know, we used to have congressional committees or subcommittees that looked at this kind of thing, what they were up to, the subversive movements, not only on the left, but on the right. The old House Committee on Un-American Activities would examine communist activities, the activities of extremists like the Ku Klux Klan. Back in the day, they would examine the Nazis and their propaganda activities here. Well, we don't have any of those committees anymore. That's one thing that my group, America Survival Inc., has been trying to press for, to bring back. So in the failure of the Congress to do that, we've taken it upon ourselves to monitor these groups. And let me give you an example. This is pretty interesting to me, and I'll try to show this on the screen. This is an upcoming celebration of the Russian Revolution. Now this is, it's pretty interesting. This is a relatively new communist group. I don't think it's been around for more than about 6 months now here in the United States. We're still investigating it, but you can see it says the Socialist Revolution in Russia and what it means for us today. Sponsored by, you see at the bottom there, the U.S. Friends of the Soviet People. Yeah, Jeff, I thought the Soviet Union was long gone. I mean, what is this?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
but here, let me show you some of this stuff. This isn't some fly-by-night fringe operation. This is one of their booklets. Very fancy, glossy magazine. You can see some of this material here.
Wow.
They have their affiliates include the Party of Communists USA, and one of them, they're also setting up, I'm sure you remember, Jeff, they used to have them in the United States, the People's School for Marxist Studies.
Mm-hmm.
And what's fascinating about all of this, and I'm just showing you a little bit of this propaganda from this particular group, is when you look at their brochure and you open it up, they have a section about how they're going to reestablish these people's schools for Marxist-Leninist studies. And on the list of courses, you may see there on the list of courses, the number 2 course, I'll read it to you, is Dialectical and Historical Materialism. Well, that's one of the subjects of our book, because many people think that the Marxists don't believe in it anymore. They don't believe in Marx. They don't believe in Marxism. It's just a means to take power. And of course it is that. It is. But one of the points in our book, The Sort of Revolution, is that they really believe it. And they act according to it. They view history in this process of dialectical change, that we're evolving to higher and higher stages of consciousness in their view, and eventually we're going to go from socialism, from capitalism to socialism to communism. And one of the points we make in our book is that we believe, because we were the group 7 years ago who exposed Barack Obama's communist ties in Hawaii and Chicago, that Obama himself sees his role as bringing the United States from capitalism into socialism. So on that basis, we analyze what this means. What is the dialectic? How are they proceeding apace? How are they moving forward in their view? And how can we counteract it in a process that Reagan once employed against them, called dialectical reversal?
Yeah, it's interesting. The path that the communists follow is not a straight line, is it?
No, it's a very interesting 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It's a process whereby, in many cases, they control both sides of the conflict in order to come out on top no matter who wins. And we analyze that process in the book, but also not just how they view it, how they see it themselves, and that's why it's important to get their literature, to read what they have to say, but also globally how this is being carried out primarily on the international stage by Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, I think people will be surprised to learn that the communists view capitalism, and even the right wing at times, is very useful, because they can see, they look at the people that oppose communism and they see something useful in what they're doing. They're saying, oh yes, we have to use what they're doing now. And it's such a shock, I think, because it's a different way of thinking than we have. It's not straightforward at all.
And one big mistake people make, we try to look at some of these mistakes on our side, how conservatives fail to comprehend this process, is they think that there's been some great Sino-Soviet split, that the Russians broke with the Chinese, and that they've been on different sides for decades. Part of our book is based on an interview and, in fact, a couple chapters from a former insider intelligence official who alerted us to this process. He had studied it for decades, and he found it frustrating that officials of the CIA and the State Department did not take it seriously. They did not even want to understand the dialectical process. They dismissed it. Oh, they didn't really believe in this. The Soviets couldn't believe in that. The Chinese couldn't believe in that. We look at that. But the other part of it is, as you suggest, Jeff, that some people will look at the Chinese system today and think, well, the Chinese have given up on communism. No, actually, what they've figured out, as part of the process, is they are themselves going through a certain stage of capitalism. They have decided, for good reasons, that free markets work to their benefit. And help strengthen their own communist system. And we have to objectively admit that's the case. When you look at what's happened in China, when you look at how many people have been brought out of poverty, say over the last 20 years, most of them, or I should say many of them, have been brought out of poverty in China. We're talking hundreds of millions of people been brought out of poverty in China, not because of communism, but because the communists in China have used free markets and capitalism to strengthen their own system. And that has indeed, we have to admit, brought a lot of people out of poverty. But this isn't the only country where they use capitalism for their own purposes as they, in their view, move to higher and higher stages. I mean, we can see it happening in Brazil. It's clear that the Brazilian Workers' Party did not want to eliminate capitalism entirely. Heck, it's made a lot of them rich, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And it's led to a lot of corruption down there, and now we see the results. But a lot of them have gotten rich by using capitalism to what they thought would be to strengthen their rule. Now they're in big trouble, we know that, because of the corruption and the cries and demands for impeachment. But we see the same process in other countries like South Africa. South Africa is ruled by the communists, but they have not eliminated capitalism. They have used it in order to make themselves rich and to strengthen what they eventually see as this process from going from capitalism into socialism into communism. So we have to understand how they see it in order not to be fooled or kept off guard as to their ultimate aims.
Yeah, that's very true. You know, historically, to give the audience a big picture, the communist doctrine of Karl Marx holds that man in his original state as a hunter-gatherer, the society was communist, that it was primitive communism, and that through these various stages like slavery and feudalism, serfdom, capitalism, socialism, communism, we return from being a primitive communist through all these dialectical changes and stages to being an advanced communist. And this is sort of their big picture view of everything. And so they believe in this historical process and their historical mission of helping to be the midwife to allowing this process to go forward. And of course it's an incredible rationalization for power and having power over people, isn't it, Cliff?
It is, and the problem for them is that in many cases it leads to incredible cases of corruption because the communists realize that they can make tons of money, and that the West will participate in their own destruction by enabling these communist regimes abroad to import certain Western technology, Western business practices, and then take advantage of us. But they will be making so much money. This is one of the excesses of this particular stage in their view, that it leads to incredible corruption. And of course, if they control the capitalist mechanisms to such an extent, it can backfire and then lead to what we all know socialism produces, which is more poverty and shortages. And that's what we're seeing, for example, in Venezuela, where they thought they could integrate some forms of capitalism into a socialist economy. But that was based mainly on high oil prices. And now the oil prices have crashed. And so what's happening in Venezuela? They have they have incredible shortages there of groceries, of food and equipment, but even toilet paper. If you can believe, they don't even have enough toilet paper for their people. So these kinds of problems which they engender in their dialectical process then leave openings, I think, for us, for the freedom-loving people, to blow the whistle on what they're up to and try to hold them accountable through the democratic processes we have left.
Yeah, it's describing Venezuela sounds almost like Cuba or the Soviet Union. Alan, in Brazil, how is the economy doing there?
The economy here is totally in a big crisis. Many companies, many big companies, declaring bankrupt because they cannot pay the salaries of the workers. They cannot pay all the taxes anymore. People are buying things less and less, and the situation, it's kind of scary. You know, people are getting scary. Every business are you know, in trouble. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to solve this problem. But one thing I would like to add in Cliff words was about communism in China, in Russia, and the capitalism. People need to remember that the free market, it's not everything. We need to remember that communism can use any dress. Communism can use any argument. Even like we say that several times here in Brazil. Even to fight against famine, to fight against abortion, or fight against, you know, about communism agenda, they can fight against their own agenda if they want to, in different situations, different countries, like they do in Russia. Like, we are conservative, we are Christians, we are, you know, we need to remember that communism is not a political topic. It's not just a political topic. It's not an economical topic. It's like Olavo de Carvalho used to say, they are psycho people. You know, you cannot think they have an idea to fight against. They can use any idea, whatever they want.
They're very flexible.
Yeah, they are totally flexible. They can fight against against free markets in one country. In another country that they need to take money from, they will defend free market. And if they want to fight against homosexual in Russia, they can use the homosexual agenda in America and Brazil to destroy their Christian background. We need to remember that communism can use whatever they want. Chavez, few months before he dies, he was in a meeting with Russians, with Cubans, with Brazilians, and he said like this, okay, I will quote, "We don't have a purpose, we don't have an end, we don't have a target, we will rebuild, I mean, once we will get the power, we will rebuild and we will redefine whatever we want, because we can do that. Our ideology is destroy everything." That's it. Communism is such a thing that destroy everything to get the power and control the people. And people need to remember that.
Yeah, Cliff?
And then I would say one of the purposes of my book here is to try to suggest alternatives, to suggest how we can constructively react to this process once we understand it. And really, I'm a novice. It's because of this former intelligence official who brought us into this discussion, who contributed several chapters of this book. This book, by the way, is available through Amazon. He has several chapters in the book. We do a Q&A. We have to get more up to speed about what this process is, how the opposition views themselves and us, and then how do we react to it. One of the things we do in the book is we talk about the Reagan policy of towards the Soviet Union of dialectical reversal, and this was a specific approach that Reagan had. Now, granted, we can say that the so-called collapse of the old Soviet Union was in large part a deception, but we have to necessarily use similar tactics in order to put them on the defensive. And I'll give you concrete examples of how not to do it before we can get into some specifics. I just did a column this week on the elections in Canada. We had in Canada a Conservative Party led by Stephen Harper, who had been in power since 2006, basically 9 years. Now, that brand of conservatism is not as aggressive or determined as I would like, but nevertheless, Harper was a good man. He was a Christian. He was trying to hold the line against so-called progressive change north of our border to our neighbor in the north. And internationally, Harper was, I called him the leader of the free world. Clearly, Obama hasn't been the leader of the free world. We know that. But Harper, during the last 7 years of the Obama administration, had been probably the leading international supporter of Israel, as well as the leading international supporter of Ukraine. Famously, a couple years ago, I think it was at one of the G20 meetings, Putin went up to Harper, extended his hand, and Harper said to him, "Look, I'll shake your hand, but you got to get out of Ukraine." I mean, Harper was a guy who was a blunt talker. He understood what the communists were up to. In fact, he spoke. He gave a major speech. We have part of it quoted in my column this week to the people in Canada who were establishing up there a memorial to the victims of communism. A lot of refugees from communist countries have come to Canada, from Vietnam, from Cambodia, from the old Soviet Union, from Ukraine. And Harper was aware of that, and he spoke for those people. He was, as I say, I called him the leader of the free world during the Obama administration. But on Monday, they took him down. He lost, and the Liberal Party of Justin Trudeau won an overwhelming victory. Now, I won't go into all the details here, but what we found out was that Obama campaign operatives had actually gone to Canada to defeat Harper, to take him down. They had supported the Liberal Party of Justin Trudeau, helping them in get out the vote efforts, and also the other left-wing opposition party called the New Democratic Party, which is an affiliate of the Socialist International. Now, the NDP didn't do as well. They fell down to third in the final vote count, but it was the Liberal Party that has gotten now the majority in Parliament. It's going to run the government. And this Justin Trudeau, you can see the pictures on our website. We have pictures of him in mosques in Canada. In one particular mosque in Canada, saying the prayer of conversion to Islam. And this guy is, he claims to be a Catholic. Now, he's a very radical pro-abortion Catholic, but some people doubt if he's really even a Catholic. But he was in the mosques. He said internationally that he's going to pull out of the global fight against Islamic terrorism. I mean, Canada wasn't doing much militarily, to be honest, but they had contributed a few troops and some planes. He's going to pull those back. So it's a major disaster unfolding north of our border here in the United States. And one of the things I look at, but we should do more study on this, is why the conservatives lost. And one big reason, quite frankly, is if you look at the platform of the Conservative Party of Canada, it was very vague. It was general. It was maintain the course, tried and true, steady the course, status quo, and that wasn't good enough. It certainly wasn't good enough in the face of foreign interference from the United States in the form of Obama campaign workers. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is here, when you're up against these forces, these Islamic terrorist and international Marxist forces, you can't fight something with nothing. You have to have a positive program to get out of the mess, to defeat the opposition, and Harper just didn't have it.
Yes, no, he was lackluster.
He was very lackluster. He thought that people were comfortable with him and he'd be reelected. It didn't work. Now, you know, one part of the problem in Canada was these Obama campaign operatives, as I say, went up there. They were helping the New Democratic Party, the Socialist Party, and the Liberal Party of Justin Trudeau. And working with Trudeau, they managed to get millions and millions of new voters out to vote for him. That's why, despite the polls showing it was going to be a close election, Trudeau won a big majority. And we have to take some lessons from this. The international Marxist forces, whether it's here, Brazil, South Africa, Canada, they're very clever, they're very well organized, and they know how to exploit the situation. And that's why here, Jeff and Alan, I've been warning the conservatives in the United States not to think that somehow, because Obama is going to have been in power for 8 years, the pendulum is naturally going to swing back to the Republican Party in 2016, and they're just going to coast in no matter what. That's not a given. That's not necessarily true. And I've reminded people that 4 years ago, all the major commentators on Fox News, not to mention the Salem Radio Network, a big conservative outlet here, they were all predicting a Mitt Romney victory. Some of them were saying Mitt Romney was going to win in a landslide. Well, we know how that turned out.
Well, it was a pretty close election, and some people, of course, think that there was some election fraud.
There could have been, except, I repeat, when we're dealing with the Obama campaign people, and they see themselves just like Obama as part of this wave, moving us away from capitalism into socialism, not only here but globally. They have figured out, they're very smart technologically. They're very good at high tech. They can identify their voters and get them out to the polls. Whether there was some fraud or not, whether some illegals voted or not, I think they were pretty good at what they did. And we have to, by contrast, in response, figure out ways to tap in to traditional values voters, conservative voters in our respective countries, to make sure that they come out, to make sure they have access to our news and information.
So is it the younger voters? Are they mobilizing? Is it the minority voters? Is that they're just good at mobilizing people who otherwise wouldn't vote?
I think with Obama, of course, it was minority voters. With the difference now for the Democrats is with Bernie Sanders, it's mostly white kids. White young kids. I went out to Manassas, Virginia, about a month or so ago, and covered the Bernie Sanders for President rally. He didn't have many minorities there, very little. But what he had was young people. He had a lot of college-age young people, probably a lot of them in college or just out of college. And these are kids who have a lot of college debt, who are facing sky-high tuitions to get out of college, and then when they get out, they can't find jobs. And what Bernie Sanders is saying to them is, hey, we're going to take care of your debt. We're going to pay for your college. And you would think smart young people, if they've taken any kind of economics course, would understand this is a bankrupt philosophy. It's not going to work. But the idea of freebies, free things, free tuition, reduce your debt, this is pulling the young people in. And once they pull them in, I saw it for myself at the rally. They have them all sign up. They're getting their email addresses. They're getting their street addresses. And whether Bernie Sanders is the eventual nominee or not, all of these young people are going to be funneled into the Democratic Party presidential campaign.
And, of course, they use smartphones. Sorry, Alan, go ahead.
Yeah. No, you mentioned something that I do believe we need to focus as soon as possible. You mentioned that we need to keep in touch with these countries, with the conservatives, with these countries. This is the main idea of the Brazil. And I would like to share with you an idea that Jeff and we are telling several times here. We need to keep in touch physically. You know, we need to make a meeting with all the conservatives around the world, and we need to understand that there is no such way to overcome this situation than making an international brainstorm, sharing our experience, how they are fighting, because they are fighting against us internationally. They are not fighting against us with every meeting they have in their own country. So in the UK, in South Africa, in America, in Brazil, and throughout the world, they are making one agenda. You said, for example, fraud, election fraud. We had this in Brazil. Dilma wasn't elected. We had election fraud in Venezuela. We had election fraud in Argentina. All of that with these stupid machine votes. And I do believe that we cannot overcome this situation if we will stay in our own country fighting against it. We need to keep in touch. We need to share things. Like you said, in Canada, they are not having this strong action. They are not being aggressive. And one thing that we need to understand that against communism, there is just one way to win them: unmasking them. We cannot dialogue with them. We cannot talk with them because they just say lies. They create lies. They promote lies. They defend themselves with lies. So we cannot approach this situation thinking that we are talking with a normal person. We are talking with a psycho person. And Olavo just mentioned that yesterday in our talk show. A psycho person has more influence than a normal person. A normal person will say, look at Brazil, guys, in America. It's happening this and happening that, fraud election, economical crisis, and all this stuff. And look at Russia, look at China, look at Venezuela, look at Cuba. They are doing the same thing. If you talk with a normal person, they will see, oh, that sounds like weird, or I don't believe it looks like a theory that it's hard to believe. And in another side, they are telling lies against us, so we cannot defend ourselves. No, I'm not saying lies. Look, what I'm saying is true. No, we need to change this action. We need to fight back. Like, you shut them up. You are saying lies. You have no moral to open your mouth and say anything against conservative movement. I think this thing we need to change on all conservative throughout the world. We need to keep in touch and understand how they act, because otherwise we will still think like we are talking with normal people. We are not talking about with normal people. We are talking with robbers, psychos, narcos, and people that want to take over all the world. It's not just one country, one city. You know, it's not one state. They want to take over all the world.
Let me ask you, Alan, do you have down there in Brazil access to the Roku device?
Roku device?
Yeah.
What is that? Sorry.
Well, this is something that we're using here. It's expanding around the world. Roku is a little device that we can buy at a Walmart or a Circuit City, an electronics store, and we can use it to gain access to alternative news and television programming through the internet. In other words, bypassing our existing cable and satellite systems. We've been doing a show. We have a channel on Roku. Roku is R-O-K-U. You can go to its website. We've been doing a show. We've had Jeff on a couple times. We had Olavo on the show probably about 8 or 9 months ago. We have had this show on for over 2 years. We do a live show every Wednesday night, our time at 9 o'clock Eastern. We record the show, put it back up on Roku, and then we put it up on our YouTube channel. The reason I bring it up is I can remember when we had Olavo on, and then we recorded the show, put it up on YouTube. there was a tremendous reaction throughout Latin America. We saw the numbers of viewers of that particular show go up astronomically in Latin America, especially in Brazil. I know people were getting access to it probably through YouTube because it looks like Roku is not widely available, but try to look for it because this is a way that people like us can stay in touch. Now, granted, on our show, we focus a lot on developments here in the United States, but when we've interviewed people like Jeff, we cover international affairs. When we interviewed Olavo, we talked a lot about not only the U.S., but what's happening in Brazil. And this is a way that people around the world who are like-minded can get access to the same kind of news and information and see what is working or not working, for example, here in the United States. Just this week, we haven't posted the show on our YouTube channel yet. We did a major interview on our Roku TV show with a Tea Party leader down in Alabama by the name of Becky Garrettson. And she runs something called the Wetumpka Tea Party. Her group had been under investigation or assault by the IRS here for 2 years before they finally got their tax-exempt status. She has gotten so involved and she's so angry over the corruption here in the United States that she herself is running for Congress next year. And it's really an inspiring story. And she's the kind of person we'll interview her, we'll put her on the air, but you won't find any other cable or satellite systems here in the States devoting any time or attention to her. But I would submit this is the kind of way, this is a manner in which we can give ideas to you. You can come back with ideas for us. You know, I don't know about the situation on the ground in Brazil, for example, but it sounds like you could use in Brazil, I mean, you've got millions of people revolting against the Rousseff government. I understand that. That's great news. But it sounds like you could use almost like a Tea Party movement in Brazil to reclaim the country, to take the country back from the communists, to take the country back to traditional values, which is exactly what the Tea Party is trying to do here. And to hear these kinds of stories from somebody like a Becky Garrettson gives me, at least, hope for the future, that the people, not all the people are fooled by these psychos. Not all the people fall for the lies. People are seeing through this, and they want to take action. They want to get the information to act upon. And I'm telling you, Roku has become really our device in order to do that. So I strongly try to suggest people to get Roku so that they can get access to our channel and alternative news and information.
That's very interesting. I just see the commentary here. Leonardo Salles just posted in our video right now, Roku.com, how it works, and I will look for it. Thank you very much. That's very interesting because maybe that can be the start to make us in touch. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, try to find out if you can buy a Roku device down there. Now, you don't necessarily need a Roku device in order to watch our show. Failing to have a Roku device doesn't mean you can't watch the show, because what we do on a Wednesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern, and you can go to my website. If you go to my website, usasurvival.org, that's usasurvival.org, on the right side you can click on a graphic where it says watch the show live. And what we do is my associate, he's actually the brains behind our channel. His name is Jerry Kenny of Kenny Broadcasting down in Florida. He is the co-host and also the producer. He streams the show not only on Roku, which, as I say, is a dedicated system worldwide, but he streams our shows on the internet. So all you have to do is have an internet connection, and you click on that graphic in order to watch it. So we're trying to get into the use of new digital technologies, new modern technologies, in order to communicate with people around the world. And as a matter of fact, according to Jerry, using what's called Google Analytics, the evidence shows that our programs on Roku are now seen in over 100 different countries. So, you know, this is a technology we have to take care of. We have to be able to use. And there you exactly. You're showing some of the. That's the Roku device.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the Roku device. Again, I don't know if people have access to them down in Brazil or not. Go down, yeah, there. See right there where it says America's Survival. Click here to watch America's Survival TV Wednesday nights. That's where you can watch our show live every Wednesday night.
That's very interesting. I didn't know about it, and then I will look for it. Thank you very much.
Well, and let me tell you, you know, even though the news out of Canada has been bad, 2 weeks ago we interviewed Brian Lilly of an alternative conservative source of news and information up there. It's called the Rebel.media. Now, they formed this in order to get out alternative news to the Canadian people, but also worldwide, when their own conservative cable channel, it was called the Sun News Network, went off the air. It went off the air primarily because, and he told us about this in our interview, the cable systems up in Canada, which air Vladimir Putin's Russia Today television and Al Jazeera, wouldn't run the conservative Sun News Network, if you could believe it. But this is what conservatives face around the world. I'm sure you know about it. It's probably the same in Brazil. But through the internet, they have started up this alternative news site, the Rebel.media, in order to try to get their information to the Canadian people. So what I'm saying is, in terms of this process I'm calling dialectical reversal, we've got to take the offensive, use the technologies that are available to us in getting out this news and information so that people around the world can see there are people like us, that they're not alone out there, that they don't have to just throw up their hands, that there are inspiring stories around the world of people taking back their countries, taking back their governments. This is really good news.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and we have the events in Ukraine and the events in Brazil, and going on, and so it's not just losing Canada. We're also, people are fighting back and waking up. It's very true.
I mean, there's a let me see if I can find it. There's all kinds of interesting things happening in Ukraine to try to rebut the Russian disinformation apparatus. I think there's a website in Ukraine called stopfake.org or .com. Maybe you could check that out while I'm talking. I think it's stopfake.org or stopfake.com. And it's solely devoted to exposing the lies behind Russian propaganda. They've run a number of my columns, including the one from last week about Putin's paid and unpaid liars. The Kiev Post in Ukraine has run a number of my articles from Accuracy in Media here in the States about how to see through the Russian propaganda. And one of the there it is, stopfake.org. This is a great example of how people are trying to save their country there against the Russian invasion. They have run my stuff. They are exposing Russian disinformation and propaganda. It's really quite extraordinary. As I say, the Kiev Post in Ukraine has been running a lot of our material, and for example, the one they cited last week that I had written about was the Dutch report that came out about the downing of the Malaysian plane in eastern Ukraine, proving really definitively that it was a Russian missile and it was fired from the Russian-occupied section of Ukraine. And of course, we knew that all along. We knew the Russians were behind it. Whether the Russians actually fired the missile, whether they ordered it, whether they directed the Russian separatists or terrorists to do it, we know the Russians were behind it. They killed about 300 people when that plane came down. But the groups like StopFake.org are designed to rebut all the disinformation, the lies that come out. You may remember Putin and his people were claiming that, oh, they didn't shoot the plane down, it was the Ukrainians, or some Ukrainian army people, or this, I mean, just all kinds of lies. You can't even keep up with the lies. There's so many of them coming out of Moscow. But StopFake.org is one example of people in Ukraine fighting back, trying to tell the truth in order to save their country.
So that's why they are making so many laws around the world against free speech, because in trying to control the technology is going against the communism. In Brazil, they are trying to shut our mouth up, making laws that we cannot contrast the politicians. But as Olavo said, laws doesn't mean anything anymore in these countries, because people need to show them who has the constitutional power. As the people has a constitutional power. There is no politic without the majority of people. We need to understand that very well. Jeff, I interrupted 2 times. Jeff, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I was just going to agree. It's interesting. We have to keep in mind that the people that are communists, that are sort of moving all these levers and moving all these people on the left and even people in the center and the right, there are a very small number of people that have very effective tactics, and that when a large group comes out, like the revolution in Ukraine or like what's happening in Brazil, they're really intimidated. They don't know what to do, because suddenly their manipulation machine fails. Their tactics are suddenly failing them, and how to get back control. And of course, limiting our access to media has been the key thing, because if people just simply know some simple facts, it suddenly alarms them, it suddenly arms them. And this is what Cliff is doing with his USA survival.org site. Cliff?
Exactly. We have tried to take advantage of the new technology. And by the way, we also, let me see if I have, we have a free app that people can download through their smartphone, whether it's an iPhone or an Android. It's called America's Survival App. That's ', America's Survival App. Let me show you. On my cell phone here. This is another thing we've done that makes it easier for people to get the alternative news and information. A lot of people today, I think the figures in the United States are over 70% of the people now have smartphones. And, I've got one. Now I'm sort of old-fashioned. I still read old newspapers. We get physical copies of newspapers coming to the house. I read books that you actually, hold in your hand, and we do publish books. I can mention, we've had, by the way, we've published several books, all available through Amazon. Jeff was a contributor to our book called Back from the Dead, The Return of the Evil Empire. We published this about 1.5 years or so ago. All the warnings Jeff and others gave in this book have been, of course, completely vindicated by events in Ukraine and now in the Middle East with the Russian invasion there. We published this book on Edward Snowden and his service on behalf of the Chinese and the Russians. Then, as part of our journalism education project, we published a book by Professor Paul Kengor called All the Dupes Fit to Print. This goes into the history of major American journalists becoming tools of communist propaganda. And these are all, we're able to publish these ourselves through a subsidiary of Amazon called CreateSpace. So, you know, the old business used to be, in order to get a book published, you'd have to set it in print, then you'd have to get it printed, and you'd wait probably 9 months or a year. We can get a book printed very quickly. We're in production right now. I'm finishing up the foreword to a book we're going to publish with a major report that Jeff has done for our group on the Russian nuclear threat. But in order to get all of this information to more and more people, we have the Roku show, that's true, but we also have this free app, and I'll show you how it works. Let me see here. You can download this app. Now, you might not be able to see this, but it's in the left corner there. It says ASI, and what you do, you download this app through the various smartphone stores. Then you press on it, and what happens is you will then get access to all of our videos, all of our news and information, all the articles we put up on the website, our Facebook, our Twitter feeds, everything. And here you can see this is our recent show we did, I think about 2 weeks ago, on Hillary and Benghazi. And then you go up. We had a show there on Stephen Harper and what was happening in Canada. I mean, so we devoted significant resources to Roku, but also to this app. And again, it's free. So anybody with a smartphone can go to one of those stores, or you can go to our website up at the top. It's easy. You just click. You'll find the website. You'll find the app. You can download it. And that way, no matter where you are, if you don't have access to a computer, if you have your smartphone, you can download all of our videos. You can get access to our news and information, Twitter, Facebook feeds. It just makes it so much more convenient and easier for people to access the information. So this is the direction we're going. We've got to take advantage of this new technology.
So Cliff, if I'm searching for the app on my app store, what do I enter to find it? Because I put USA Survival and I got a zombie game.
No.
How do I do it?
The app, that's a pretty good game, by the way. No, I'm kidding. You have to enter in. One way to do it is go to USA Survival.
Okay.
.org. This might make it easier. Go to usasurvival.org, and then see up at the top it says, get the latest news and information on your mobile device. Download it today. It's free. You can click on that, and you can see the actual title, Jeff, is America's Survival ''S. It's the America's Survival app. The app isn't usasurvival.org. That's the website.
I wasn't putting the S at the end of America's.
Yeah, ''S. Make sure it's ''S. Okay. I think it's in there under ''S. And this has really been helpful because, look, one of my youngest son, who's a junior in high school, he almost never reads newspapers. Never. He may pick up a paper and pick up the Washington Post. He may pick it up, maybe. But normally, what does he do? He picks up his smartphone and he goes over. He has some apps. He goes over websites for news and information. This is where young people are going. They're not, frankly, they're not reading newspapers anymore.
Yeah.
And so, did it work for you there? Did you get it, Jeff?
I'm on your website on my smartphone, and where is it? Is it at the top or at the bottom?
At the top.
It says American Survival, and I see an article, I think. But available for your Android phone. I see it. It's the blue line at the top. I see it at the very top. Yes, it's right there. So, yeah, there it is. I can download it.
See, that's how easy it is. You can also go directly to the Google or App stores and just look up America's ''S Survival app and then download it that way, or go to the website on your phone. But it's really pretty easy. We will get through that technology. We will give you notifications on Wednesday nights of our upcoming show, who the guest is going to be, what the topic's going to be. And look, I'm not just trying to promote my group, but I tell you, thanks to people like...
No, don't worry. We got it.
You know, thanks to people like Jerry Kenny, the broadcaster friend of mine in Florida, we have really gotten big into the new technology, Roku and these apps. And we're fine. And then, of course, all of our Roku shows are put up on YouTube. We have a huge YouTube channel now with over 500 videos. We have Alavos up there, many of them with Jeff, and we have over 1.1 million views on YouTube alone. So this is the kind of thing where the technology exists, and we can get this information into more and more hands around the world.
Cliff, I have a question. Of course, you are known about São Paulo's forum, right? You know about all the meetings the socialists made throughout the world. Do you believe that we can make such a thing for conservatives? Make a meeting in one organization that we can join all these groups together? How do you think about it?
It's a good idea. It would require quite a few resources. And some dedicated personnel to almost devote full time to it. It's worthwhile to do. We would have to do some organizing and be able to identify like-minded people around the world who would be part of this. Now, I remember I haven't heard much from him. I think he was put under house arrest in Venezuela, but there was a group formed to counteract the Sao Paulo Forum called Uno America.
Alejandro Pena? Are you talking about Alejandro Pena?
Yeah, isn't he?
I think he's still under house arrest. I haven't talked to him for a year or two.
Olavo mentioned that this guy is arrested yet. Olavo suggested him to stay in America because he could do more, like Olavo does. But unfortunately,
is Alejandro in America now?
No.
He suggested he go there.
Venezuela because he decided to.
I remember meeting Olavo and Alejandro several years ago in D.C. It was
exactly.
Yeah.
Was in that moment Olavo said to him, "Don't go back to Venezuela and stay here because that will be better for you. That's what I'm doing here now." But Alejandro decided, no, I want to be there with my people and so on. But unfortunately, he got arrested and unreachable.
Yeah, as I recall, they were trying to accuse him of all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And but the Uno America, I don't think it had much of a presence here. I mean, I was a supporter, but I think they still have a website. I don't know if they're very active now or who's involved.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is something bigger than just against Foro São Paulo.
Yeah.
I think we need to do something clear and open to all conservatives throughout the world. You want to learn how to fight against communism? Join us, because the critical minds, they are not in big numbers, right? But the people that identify themselves with us, they are big. And once we start something like this, that's my humble opinion. I may be wrong, but I do believe we need not to become international, you know, like international socialism, international conservatism. No, I'm not saying such a thing. I just do believe that we need to keep in touch frequently. We need to talk. We need to share our experience. We need to share our feelings, our thoughts, our sights, and show it to people as an identity. You know, showing people you want to learn about it. Just look for it. It's not just American. It's not Brazilian. It's not Venezuelan. It's not British. It's not South American. This is international. This is where you need to go to learn to fight against communism and so on. I do believe we are late already to do such a thing. I don't know if you understand what I
do. Look, I totally agree. I guess what I'm saying is, in order to accomplish that, to create such an international or global organization, or have a presence of some kind at least, we're going to need some resources to pull that off. That's not an easy task. That's not an easy job.
I know.
In the meantime, feel free to access Roku, our site. Let me encourage people who watch this show, who agree with us, who want to see that kind of organization started. If you have articles about the situations in your countries that you want to get posted, that you want to get some exposure to, at least here in the United States, although my website is international in scope, please send the information to me. We can post the articles. We can do what we can. I maintain about 5 or 6 different websites. One of them is called religiousleftexposed.com, which looks at Marxism in the Catholic Church. We've got usasurvival.org, of course. We had one called LeninandSharia.com, based on one of our conferences that looked at communist-Muslim cooperation. So let me give people my personal email address. If you have articles that you want to send, you want to contact me directly, my email address is simple. It's Kincaid, Kincaid, at Comcast.net. That's COMCAST. Kincaid at Comcast.net. If you have articles that are worthwhile that you want to get more exposure to, send those to me. This could be the seed. This could be a way to start at least gathering different international perspectives in one place and making sure Americans here, who are so focused on our problems here, see the global nature of the problem.
I'm saying that since the beginning of Update Brazil, and this last week, something happened that made me believe that this is an amazing thing that we can do. For example, Anca Maria, she's a doctor in Romania. She was here three or 4 weeks ago, I guess, and she spoke at the Synod in the Vatican, and she unmasked all the communism actions in Eastern Europe, and that was such a thing that blasted, all the news throughout the world. And Anca Maria is a friend of us. Here in Brazil, we are unmasking the Brazilian Bishop Conference, what they are doing against the church, against the Catholic people, because they are using the institution to promote communism. I don't know if you are aware of that, but Workers' Party was born inside the Brazilian Bishop Conference. So the biggest and the strongest communism party was born inside the Catholic Church in Brazil. Of course, there are good bishops, there are good priests fighting against that, but the establishment are controlled by KGB members. And we are unmasking that several times here in Brazil. Anca Maria is unmasking there in Romania. You guys are unmasking in America. We need to make such a thing that people can see the whole thing together, instead of looking for separate source. I do believe that we need to make one source of that. That's what I'm trying to go through.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, if you can, Alan, can you put up the site religiousleftexposed.com? Can you put that on the screen there so people can see that?
Yeah, a few seconds. Is it religious?
Religiousleftexposed.com.
You can keep talking while I will.
Okay. We've had this site going. Oh, you need a D at the end of expose.
Oh, I'll say.
Put a D at the end of expose.
I mean,
yeah.
Because I put here. Let me see. Right.
Here, you can cut and paste it, Ellen. I'll send it to you here.
Okay, expose.
There you go. You can just click on the chat and you can see.
There you go.
There we go. We've had this one going for probably 8 years or so, and it's, of course, become more and more relevant under this Pope. For a while there, we thought that these forces could be rolled back, but with the forced resignation of Pope Benedict and the ascension of Pope Francis, we have all kinds of original material. We have links to videos. I recommend this around the world. This is a great source of information about what's happening in the Catholic Church.
Pretty good.
And I would remind those who are not Catholic that in other churches, in Protestant churches, the same kind of thing is going on. The same kind of subversion is happening in other churches, and people don't realize that their own Christian church organization is has been taken over in many instances as being used for revolutionary purposes in a very sly way.
That's true, except that the Catholic Church is so huge. 1.2 billion. It's got 65 million, at least, adherents here in the United States. And as I mentioned, the new Prime Minister of Canada is supposedly a Catholic who favors unlimited abortion up until the time of birth, who was photographed in a mosque saying the conversion prayer. I mean, this is just extraordinary when you think about it. I mean, how can that be permitted? Why aren't these so-called Catholics like Justin Trudeau excommunicated? You know, and we've got a piece going to appear probably in a week or so, and I'm speaking as a Catholic myself, on federal funding of the Catholic Church in the United States. Federal funding of the Catholic Church. And it's for ostensibly good purposes like taking care of refugees and so forth and so on, doing humanitarian work. But think about the leverage that millions and millions of dollars has on the church. If the church is getting money from the government, the church is going to toe the line.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. Well, I guess we're out of time, huh, Alan? We're at the end of the show, and I want to thank Cliff for coming on, and maybe you could give your website information again, Cliff, and so everybody can get it if they missed it earlier.
Well, thanks, Alan and Jeff, for this opportunity. Again, our main website is usasurvival.org, and if you scroll down on the right side of that website, you'll see we offer a free newsletter. We also have a specialized newsletter that we ask for a modest contribution for, called World Revolution Report. But you can email me directly as well. Please sign up for the free newsletter, but if you have articles you want to contribute, one of them, send that to me directly. That's Kincaid, Kincaid, at Comcast.net.
Absolutely good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Cliff, again. Thank you all for joining us for another edition of the Update Brazil. And we hope that we will see you next week. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.